Liberals replace independent PBO weeks after he exposed shocking and unsustainable deficit. The parliamentary budget officer is meant to stand outside politics, offering clear, nonpartisan analysis of Canada's books. But the government controls who holds the job. In 2025, Jason Jacques was appointed interim PBO for only 6 months. Within weeks, he warned that the country's deficit path was stupefying, shocking, and unsustainable, and that Canada's debt to GDP ratio was climbing for the first time in 3 decades. A short term meant a short leash, and he was removed before releasing a full review of Budget 2025, which later revealed a $78.3 billion deficit. Conservatives had urged a permanent 7-year term to guard the office from political pressure. Instead, Jacques' dismissal showed how thin those protections are when the ruling party appoints the watchdog. Ottawa is now searching for a new PBO, stressing diversity and bilingualism. The message between the lines is harder to miss. Independence lasts only as long as it's convenient. So can an oversight office be independent if the government controls its appointment?
No, this is the most ridiculous thing. The opposition party should always be the one to appoint the watchdog. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When you have your ruling party that's allowed to dictate who regulates and who watches over the party, it doesn't make any sense, especially when you have a majority. But here's what I would say. I mean, it's pretty clear that you have more people now that they just want to like shut your mouth and toe the line, right? $265,000 a year, corner office expense account. Life is good. You're just going to do what you're told and not ruffle any feathers. But this is becoming sort of my wedge issue now that I've decided the reason why I do a lot of content, I think, is you want skeptical citizens. Mm-hmm. You want your citizenry to be skeptical of what the government's doing. All sides, conservative, liberal, all the parties. And all of them do things that are in their own best interest and not yours. Constantly. I mean, we've seen this. You look at Trudeau's scandals, and it was just the only reason he was able to stay in office because he had another scandal the next week that was even bigger. It's wild. Until finally the balloon burst. Now we have Carney. So what I'm getting at here is it's very clear that when there's someone that is trying to hold the government accountable, they're going to remove them as quickly as possible. So as citizens, what we need to do is we need to remain skeptical. And the reason is because we need to make sure that we fill these positions with people that are willing to stand up and do exactly what Jason Jacques just did. Say, hey, this doesn't make any sense and here's why. Or here's the reality of the situation. Or here are some guardrails that you should put in place. This is the only way we keep the government accountable right now because we know that there's no true accountability. We know nobody goes to prison for the things they do. No one has to pay the price. Whether they, bat 1,000% or literally bat zero. There's no difference in what they pay themselves and how this works. We know that it's corrupt. We know they pay their buddies. All this other stuff. If we remain skeptical and keep our foot on the gas and demanding that watchdogs and regulators are actually nonpartisan or are appointed by, potentially, I think this would be the best solution, appointed by the official opposition, then we can have some semblance of accountability within our system. Not that we can force them to pay the price, but at least citizens will know what's really going on. So this is a huge problem, and I hope people remain skeptical because I think that's the only way we keep reasonable people in these positions to hold them accountable.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think the 7-year term isn't a bad option, but even not whether it's not the opposition appointing them, but even just Parliament in general, because then hey, if it is a watchdog and their entire goal or position is meant to keep the ruling party in check, then yeah, maybe it makes sense to have the opposition, but at least the very least, it should be Parliament. But the worst possible system you could have is the people in charge.
Yeah, the ruling party being like, wait a minute, I'm going to increase your pay by 40,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Come on, man.
But actually, Jason Jacques just put out a report the other day that is pretty crazy, showing what Carney did with his whole operating budget and this 73.8 or 78.3. Yeah, $78.3 billion deficit. Is that because, we've talked about this a lot about how the operating expenses versus the capital expenses and how capital expenses are used for when companies are investing in, say, an asset, something they actually own, where an operating asset is just day-to-day costs, like hydro. There's nothing coming back from it. It's gone. That money's a black hole. Well, Jason Jacques. I don't know why I keep saying Jean-Jacques.
It's easier. It sounds more fun. Jean-Jacques. Sounds like a better name.
I think, I know exactly why. It's the philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Oh, there you go.
But anyways, so he released a report showing how Carney's budget is just in complete manipulation, because all of those capital investments, actually a lot of them aren't, because we thought, oh, this is the government expanding and trying to ownership, but we couldn't tell what they were classifying until this budget came out. But what he's saying is that actually what he's done is just take operating costs and put them under capital costs so that he can say to Canadians and write headlines, we're investing more than ever into this, and making it seem like we're going to get something back from this when it really is just operating costs. So for instance, in 2024, 2025, Carney said his operating costs were 4.1 billion. Real was 10.5.
Right.
And so, for instance, the things that he is putting into this is, because typically capital costs would be stuff like bridges, roads, public buildings, rail infrastructure, etc. But what he's putting into the capital investments is corporate tax breaks, investment tax subsidies, production subsidies, various policy programs. And so they're actually just operating costs, but he's just manipulating it so that he can make it seem like this is good fiscal policy.
Yep, not surprised at all. I mean, I did see him basically rip him apart, and he was saying, like, you know, when you look at this shift, the number's actually much higher. I think it was around 94 billion or something like that is what he was saying. Yeah, I mean, look, again, this is why we need these people. And, you know, you and I are constantly looking for ways to hold government accountable. I think this might be the lowest hanging fruit. I just don't know how you actually implement it, because you look at what Jason Jacques said, and like it reverberated through the entire nation. People couldn't avoid it. Like they had to try to be like, it was interesting because the mainstream media covered it. They tried to not cover it. Then it got picked up by some of the right leaning stuff like National Post, and it kind of got everywhere. And the thing is, they really couldn't argue against it. They were like, well, I mean, Carney's a financial genius, though. He'll sort this out. Like, that was kind of the best argument I saw. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So it's like, if we can have these watchdogs in every different arena, every different section of government, in some sense, like, that's something I think we should champion. And it would be interesting. Like, I don't know how you would implement it. I don't know how you would actually get them to take you seriously. But I think that would be something that concerned citizens could actually work on in this country, is being like, hey, look, we need to find a way to have a legitimate third-party watchdog organization that, you know what's interesting? I guess you have a lot of these things that are like these think tanks and these thought groups and stuff, like what's a good example? Fraser Institute is one, you know, where that's essentially what they do. They kind of try to keep the government accountable by highlighting them. And then they often get smeared in the media or whatever, or don't get the amount of coverage they deserve. But I think it's if you can't get into an official position, it's having more groups like that, because it may just be a numbers game. Like, we need more people actually accurately assessing what the government is doing and sharing this information. I just don't see how else we even start holding them accountable. And you know what? When they give this person a job, I think it'll be interesting to see the difference between Jason Jacques and what this person says from their first day on the job. Oh, here's the first thing you have to assess. What are your thoughts?
Right.
And it's going to be just such bullshit. But I hope Canadians recognize that. I hope they see this for what it is. And I hope that it mobilizes or sparks some change.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is the stuff that I wonder about, because even I can feel sometimes like when I'm getting into these things, it takes me like the amount of research and stuff I have to do to actually understand what's going on here is pretty in depth. And I don't know if you could ever expect the average person to be able to do that. Let's say they're working 2 jobs, they've got a family thing, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then also on top of it, like, look, I'm not trying to make a moral claim against these people and saying that this makes them worthless or like bad people. But if we consider that the average IQ in our, like, pretty much across the Western world, more or less is about 100.
Yeah.
That means 50% of your population is under 100 IQ. I don't think they even have the faculties to understand what this means.
No, I give the government a lot of credit for convoluting things, conflating things, and separating things into different buckets. So it's very difficult to connect the dots.
Yeah, but it is, because I agree with you. They're doing the manipulation aspect, but I think even if they weren't manipulating, even if they were honest, it's kind of like, okay, the average person, 99% of people can understand that 2 + 2 = 4.
Math is racist. Careful.
But I don't think the majority of the population can understand complex algebra. It doesn't mean that algebra is manipulative or that somebody's trying to make it more complicated than it really is to hide it from you or anything. It's just meaning that it is a complicated thing.
Well, you have to pick up the language first. System. Yeah, you have to know the language first to understand the problem and how to process it. That's all. And often over the years, if you haven't done algebra since grade 10, you just forget the language.
Right.
It's not that you're incompetent. It's just like, it speaks in different terms. You have to pick that up first and understand the process. So yeah, I agree. It's just like it's a big lift.
But so I look at that and go, okay, if you want to, actually educate and make sure that the majority of Canadians are on board and behind this kind of stuff and understand what's going on and what the future looks like and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. I'm coming more and more around to this idea of like, can you even expect that of people? And again, I'm not trying to make a moral claim against those people because I would take somebody with a 90 IQ and a heart of gold that is well-intentioned. And like, I'd much rather be around that person than somebody with 150 IQ that is bitter, resentful, and destructive to everything around them. Yep. 100%. I don't place that much moral weight on intelligence, but I do just look at it and go, maybe this is like one of the most terrible aspects of democracy. And like, even too, right? Like, you go back to the ancient Greek philosophers, and they were warning about this, like Socrates and stuff, with when it comes to democracy is like, look, people are just going to get to the point where they vote to go, give me more shit, and not understanding where that ends up.
100%. I totally agree. I think that, well, again, this is to sort of stay on topic. I think this sort of, again, highlights the importance of having people in these roles that can explain it in a way that people go, I should ask some questions. Mm-hmm. Shocking, stupefying, unsustainable debt, unsustainable deficit. That's where we are right now. That's what he said. And he did explain it in more detail. And he has now explained some of the flaws in Carney's budget. And I don't think people are going to go through a 400-page budget on their own. I only know a couple of people that have actually done it, for the recent one. But when you have guys like this, that have a strong moral compass and can break it down and can give you the nuts and bolts of what's happening, anybody can start asking questions and going, this does not make sense. We need to correct course. The biggest thing and why I'm pushing for skepticism is if you're not skeptical, your government will continue running you over by giving you free shit and then getting away with murder, with robbery, with whatever. And that's exactly what's happening. And we just need more people to wake up, regardless of the level of their IQ, to actually be skeptical, to demand that there are people in positions that can explain these complex things or take the time, even for people that are highly intelligent, just that you have someone else that will take the time to do this. And that's what I think Canada, like, we really need this. And this guy, he really highlighted it for me because it's been a while since we've seen anybody in that position really be at odds with the government. And if you look at what's happened to Canada over the last fucking take your pick on the number of years, we've just continued to basically nosedive and our debt continues to increase. Okay, then how come no other watchdog has said anything? How come no other watchdog has said, well, our federal budget's just been growing? Okay, well, why isn't anyone asking any questions, regardless of the reason why? Why isn't anybody saying, well, this doesn't really make any sense? Why has, since Trudeau was in office, why did he increase that? Why did this jump? Why did this happen? No one challenged Trudeau on any of those things. And he was the biggest problem I think we've had. I think he's literally the worst prime minister we've ever had. I know that it's like close, so proximity feels. I just still think Trudeau's the worst prime minister we've ever had. Anyway, my point is you need more people in these positions. And this guy did a good job of highlighting why.
But don't worry, John. We'll just keep doing more of it. It'll turn around eventually.
If you actually want to have an intellectual conversation about how that was going before, I'll keep going.
I'm kidding.